A la viva, the used price performance is back. If you have been looking to build yourself an RTX 3050 gaming PC, then in today's video, I'm gonna show you how you can build this thing for under $300. That's right, the whole gaming PC. Now you might be stopping me there and saying, well, an RTX 3050 costs $300 brand new off the shelves. And you would be correct. However, today, I'm gonna be showing you the power of used price performance. So let's quickly go over the components that we're using here, then we'll put this PC together. If we come into any problems, we'll detail them, and then I'll also tune the PC up to get the most performance possible out of this RTX 3050, and then I'll even throw in some gaming benchmarks at the end, showcasing how much performance you may be missing if you want to go, say, spend more money on a 13600K, which you'd be wasting a lot more money if you go down that route versus what we've got here today.
Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again. With today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, you can get activated for as little as $15 using that coupon BFTYC. Links in the description below.
So we have just come into our first problem already, and that is that our motherboard is a full-size ATX board and our case is only MATX. However, I've already got a solution for this problem, and that is, since the old motherboard boxes are really strong, we are going to be using the motherboard box as our case. And the great thing about this is we can save $14.50 off this build, and also that could buy me like 30 cans of baked beans practically. So I'm considering this a win. So everything on this build booted first go, there's no problems whatsoever, no fans are making any noises, and everything seems to be working a-okay. However, I am looking at this motherboard, shiny CPU cooler, RTX 3050, and I'm thinking, this does deserve a case. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna jump in my car, head down the junk store, and go pick out a cheap ATX special for this build. So I just got back from not just one junk store, but two junk stores, and they both just had absolute trash deals. And I might sound like a little bit of a crybaby here, but I used to get in Japan cases for like $2, and they would do the job and they'd be really good. Now, for example, they're asking around $20 for a case that's just totally banged up. It's missing a foot on the bottom of the case, and there's no clear side panel, and I've got to spend extra time cleaning it up. When if I go to Amazon, I can get a brand new case delivered to my door for $35 with 3 RGB LED ring fans and a clear tempered glass side panel. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to give this build a new case because all the parts are just already so clean, and just by booting it up this first time, I really feel like this build is going to end up being something quality. So I want to give it the best chance. So we're gonna have to wait another day until that case comes in before we can finish this PC. And the good news out of all this is that this gaming PC is still going to come around $300. Before it was under $300, now it's actually going to be $1.45 over $300. So those gaming numbers that you just witnessed, they were incredibly smooth across 4 different free-to-play titles. Overwatch 2, 1080p ultra settings, we were getting over 150 average FPS with the RTX 3050. However, to get this FPS out of the 10-year-old CPU, we had to overclock it in the BIOS. And so this meant raising the CPU speeds and also raising the memory speeds and some of the voltages. Though the good thing is here, since it's a 4-core, 8-threaded CPU, it doesn't need such a massive cooling solution, nor does it need a really expensive motherboard. Though there was also one more part to the tuning equation, and that is the graphics card. Here is where we actually decided to undervolt the graphics card, however, go for higher clock speeds and also higher memory speeds with this RTX 3050. And this is where it responded really well, using 30 watts less power draw and also giving us higher FPS in games. So let's get back now to the FPS numbers, and here's where I compared it with an i5 13600K with the same settings and also using the RTX 3050. Now, the first 2 best examples for the older hardware was Apex Legends, where we really only lost a couple of percentage points in FPS, and our 1% and 0.1% lows were extremely smooth in this title. Though also moving over to Overwatch 2, here's where we saw an increase in the 1% and 0.1% lows, but the average FPS wasn't a whole lot higher. So in other words, this older Xeon was doing a great job of still giving out a very playable experience in Overwatch 2, and that's really impressive considering this CPU is over a decade old. In fact, it's over 12 years old. And the best thing about this CPU is it can be shipped worldwide for $10, making it dirt cheap, especially if you come across a first generation motherboard like the P55 or a H55 motherboard. So I'm actually blown away by how well it did in those 2 titles. Considering those 2 titles are competitive multiplayer titles, though we will move over to Call of Duty, where here's where we gained actually quite a bit of average FPS, as well as 1% and 0.1% lows when we used an i5 13600K with the RTX 3050. So 1080p high settings with the 3050, we went up to a little over 110 average FPS, and the 1% and 0.1% lows were actually sizably better too. And then over to Dota 2, here's where we went all the way up to over 180 average FPS with the RTX 3050s. So these 2 titles were gaining quite a bit from using an i5 13600K, for example, but this whole build came in at a cheaper price than the i5 13600K CPU cost by itself. And to be fair, Dota 2 at 1080p over 100 average FPS where it's currently at, and also Call of Duty at 70 average FPS, I could play both of these games absolutely fine and still get some frags. Though in terms of power consumption, here's where this gaming PC used up a little over 200 watts from the wall whilst we were in these titles. So it wasn't exactly this massive ancient dinosaur in terms of power consumption, and it's also got some RGB bling thanks to that Zalman case that we picked up for a pretty good price, considering it does keep the temperatures in check, with the RTX 3050 staying under 70 degrees and also the CPU temperature staying under 70 degrees even whilst that's overclocked. Though I wouldn't recommend this case for higher builds, especially if they're dumping a lot more heat in the case. Though getting back to today's star of the show, the X3440 Xeon. The reason I haven't looked at the Xeons a whole lot, I think in the last year, is because the budget graphics cards weren't there, especially during 2021. There was just no budget in terms of availability. Everyone was picking them up for crypto mining and all the graphics card prices were just stupid. And so that kind of left this area, this hole, where you could couple a budget Xeon with a budget graphics card and get extremely good value. But recently in the last couple of months, GPU prices are just crashing down like we did in this recent parts hunt. We picked up this RTX 3050 for a great price. I thought, well, I've got to couple this with the X3440 Xeon because I picked up a P55 motherboard, some cheap DDR3 memory, and we just ended up getting such a magical experience out of this old hardware. And don't be deterred by the fact that the CPU is 12 years old. Of course, I do heavily recommend tuning it to get the most out of it, but it does respond really well to tuning. You can get, in this case, we got roughly 43% extra performance by just spending a few minutes in the BIOS and taking it from 2.66 gigahertz all the way to 3.8 gigahertz. And to be honest, I thought coming back to the Xeons and revisiting them, I thought they would be out of date, but they're still relevant. And especially if you can pick up the budget hardware, don't be afraid to go with the first generation or second generation, even third or fourth generation Xeons, because they all represent great value, especially if you can pick up the motherboard and the RAM for very cheap. So really blown away by the X3440 in Overwatch 2. Great experience, smooth as butter, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's budget gaming PC. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. Also, I'll leave some links in the description below. Anyhow, guys, I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. If you stayed this far and you're enjoying that Techie-ass content, be sure to hit that like button. And also, if you're watching the content and you want to see it the moment it drops, be sure to hit the sub button, ring the bell, and I will catch you guys in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye. LaViva. Use price performance. LaViva. Tech City. Jack. But LaViva is something else. Jack isn't a name that people would use with LaViva. LaViva Jack.